morning to the next. And that's the best thing about being out here in the wild, in the bush. But in the meantime, James is out and about. I think last time we spoke he was checking to see if there were any updates from those female leopard tracks that we had moving down from final control, it looked like into the drainage line. So let's see what he's been up to, and we will catch up with you a little bit later.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. From chilly Lowveld, here in the wonder of the Kruger National Park. It's 8 degrees, which for us is Baltically cold. But the sun, as you can see, is starting to shine on my back, and things will warm up shortly. My name is James Hendry. On camera today we have Brian, trussed up like a camouflaged member of a very chilly sort of perhaps Russian expeditionary force into the Arctic. It is a beautiful morning. We found lion tracks and leopard tracks since we started, and they've all disappeared, obviously. But we've come up towards the Buffelshoek cut line to see if we can't follow up on specifically the lion tracks that came through here. The leopard tracks that Jamie saw earlier and that I was going to follow, I haven't re-found. So we're going to keep trying for those. Possibly Karula, which is quite nice. Again, I've only ever met that leopard once, and so I'd really like to find her again. The tracks, I don't know, we don't know where they've headed, so we'll probably loop around here and then head back towards quarantine clearings and see if we can't pick them up again. That is the general plan. Now, please remember, you are on a live safari. That means that you may talk to us, and indeed we do enjoy hearing from you. #SafariLive if you're tweeting away like the crested Franklin calling over there, or questions at WildEarthTV if you happen to be on the email. Wherever you are on this fine planet, please feel free to talk to us and enjoy what is to be a live dawn safari. Those are the plans. Of course, the best laid plans in the world generally or can easily go awry, especially out here where biological systems don't read any textbooks and don't ever act according to how we think they're going to. So, that's the general idea. Brian, have I left anything out?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Shall we carry on? Indeed. Right. So we're going to slowly sort of ooze up this road and see if we can't pick up some more tracks of either the lion or the leopard. And I'll keep you posted as we go. It's a stunning, clear, crystalline morning. I think it's probably going to warm up quite a lot during the course of our little drive. This large radio I have that you perhaps saw me wielding like a sword is a function of the fact that we do have a few little radio issues on Wendy, but they certainly seem to be improving. But that's why I'm carrying this thing here. I feel quite authoritative with it. I can point, I can hit Brian if I need to, hit myself when I get the names of animals wrong. So not an easy job. Sometimes, you find animals once or twice and you think, gosh, I'm really good at this now. It's really easy. Then you have a day like we had yesterday where Scott and I were trying desperately to follow the Birmingham boys, and I'm afraid after hours and hours of finding their tracks and losing them, we just had nothing. So it's not very easy at all. Okay, I'm just going to yesterday afternoon we did have a lovely picture. We had a lovely sighting of a hippo in the mud in Twin Dams, just sort of lying there and looked almost stuck. And Lisa G and PK, you'd like me to go and have a look and see if he's still there. We'll definitely do that during the course of the morning. Go and see if he's okay. I thought he looked a bit stuck, I must say. Brent is hailing me on the radio. Stand by.
So you can send those tracks you've got around the dam, I'll call them there.
No, negative. I don't think so.
So this is Jamie now talking to Brent on the radio, Game Drive channel.
Tracks in the heading straight north from the Bullshook sign, Gallagher Shortcut Junction.
So, alas and alack, we do seem to have these lines crossing out. Brent is tracking over to the north of us there, and they seem to be crossing north out of us, which is a pain. But we will keep looking, fear not. Then John, while we're following these lion tracks, the tracks that I found were males this morning, and John Sherman, you would like to know, do we know who those males are? I think you're probably referring to the two that Scott had 2 days ago. John, those are definitely the Salati males, 2 Salati males. I don't know where they came from exactly, probably from the north, but they don't seem to be around at the moment. Although, that said, I heard 2 male lions calling last night. Definitely a tandem of 2 of them, and they sounded like they were still on Djuma, which is this piece of land that we operate on. To the north of us now is Biffle's Hook, which is a piece of land we're not allowed onto. But John, I definitely heard 2 lions calling from around here yesterday evening. Now there is a deeply unappealing smell at the moment. Ryan, this is where the smell came from yesterday, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now apparently a hyena dragged a carcass across this boundary yesterday and is clearly devouring it somewhere nearby, but it really is a vile stink. So we do need to watch the ground very carefully. Young hyena track there, that's quite nice. They seem to have moved their den. You got it? I think we're just going to drive down here quickly. Just hold on one sec, everybody. Sorry, radios are a little difficult. Now, Marilyn, you have preempted what I'm doing now. While Brent is just checking for the lions, the hyenas seem to have moved their den, and there are lots of tracks coming down here, and so we'll just have a quick squiz about here and see if we can't find where there might be a new den, maybe on this game path along here. Just going to see if there are any tracks going along here. See any tracks going in there, Brian? Well, nothing obvious. We'll just drive up this particular way. Marilyn, when we try and find the new den, which we will do, it's much better to try and do it on foot, obviously, because you can't just blast away through the bush breaking things. And that's how we found this last one. Steph found it. He was walking around there and he found the hyena den, which they seem to have moved. But as soon as we find it again, we will absolutely go to it. So we'll just drive slowly up here, keeping a very keen eye out for any sign of lion tracks or indeed leopard tracks. Oh, it's very nice. As we come to the ridge crest here, the feeling of the sun is just glorious on the back of the head. Ooh, there's no lovely smell in the air. It really does change the smell in the air. Goes from a very crisp, chilly, kind of moist feeling down in the troughs, and it just, what does it smell like, Brian? It smells like warm air, I suppose. A little bit like steam, I suppose. Crispness, yes, crisp steam. So it was only about 8 degrees this morning, or 43 degrees Fahrenheit, which for this time of the year I would say is unseasonably cold. Often September is beastly hot. Not much in the way of rain. Marianne makes a good point that I should have my blankie on today in Arkansas. Marianne, I don't have my blankie today, and now this is for a very good reason. The reason I don't have a blankie on, Marianne, is that because Jamie and I are both driving, and neither of us are particularly tall, we both have to pile the blankies on the seat, otherwise you won't see us, you'll just see the tops of our heads. So all the blankies are under Jamie and I, and none of them are on top of us. So alas, no blankie around me legs today. Alright, so we're going to head across to Jamie now. She is following some lion tracks, and we'll get an update from her, and I will hopefully see you just now with a bit of good news. See you later.
Welcome back, and as you may have heard through James's Game Drive channel, Brent has picked up on some line tracks heading straight north towards the Buffelshoek cut line, and it looks to be, although we can't tell exactly how many members, it does look to be a whole pride, most likely the Nkalumas. I would say that's fairly certain, although you should never say anything with complete certainty out here. And never fear, we're going to check and see if they've made it all the way into Buffelshoek. Unfortunately, that may be where the story ends for now, if they have crossed across, but I'm sure that some of the other guides will be able to give us updates. I'm just checking along to the east as well, since Brent is following up to the north, just to see if we can work out if two sets of tracks came together. So if the other Nkaluma members moved towards where I saw those tracks of what looked like Junior and those lionesses. Just checking very carefully around Central Road, and by trying not to lose all sensation in my fingers. Ah, there we go. And there we have an update from Brent that the entire pride crossed north, just to the east of Sydney's Dam. So they've crossed north across Buffelshoek cut line and into Buffelshoek. But this is great news. I'm really hoping that it means that the Nkalumas are back together once again, and quite possibly that in the next few days maybe we get to see Junior as well. I know it's been quite a long time since we've seen him. And September always catches me by surprise. I think it's summer, but it's actually not quite. So I pack away all of my winter layers at the start of the month, and then instantly regret it around this time. Sure. Blinding sun. I'd even be called for popping the hat on for now, or just to keep my eyes shaded a little bit, make sure I don't miss anything. Now, since we have had that report on the lions crossing north, might be time to change the game plan a little bit. Go and see what's happening across at Buffelshoek Dam. Still keeping an eye out for the tracks of the Birmingham boys, because Brent did say he saw tracks of a couple of males moving through as well. Curious to see where they've ended up. Those male tracks that Brent had, and if you were watching yesterday, we'd known that Scott and myself and James were also very intently looking for the Birmingham boys that we suspected were somewhere around Rebecca's Road. We just couldn't find them, and I think that those tracks probably belong to them, which is why I'm making sure that we check extra carefully to see if maybe they followed the Nkuhumas north. Now, with all of the calling that happened last night, it started out very close to quarantine clearings. There was lots of noise around that side. But by the time we sort of heard the last calls, the last call I heard was about 1 o'clock in the morning. That was towards Buffelshoek. That definitely sounded like male lions as well. Which sort of leads me to suspect that the Birmingham boys might have crossed north as well. But you never know. Hippos have been out and about in a big way last night. On to Cheetah Cutline. Let's see what's happening here. Seems as though we're all out and about in the search for lions. James has just picked up tracks for a single male along the fire break. Now, typically, the Nkuhumas move around this area. They sort of move between Torchwood, Buffelshoek and Djuma, and sometimes even all the way up into the Manduleti. And Anne, you were wondering about typical pride territories. and that very much depends on the environment that the lions are in, lion density, how many lions there are around, and what the prey density is like for them. But typically they don't necessarily have enormous territories. They'll have a core home range, of which Djuma, I would say, and Torchwood and Buffershoek would be part of the core home range of the Nkuhunga Pride, and then it extends outwards to sort of fringe boundaries that will overlap with other prides in the area. So their southern boundary of their territory will sort of interact or cross over that of the Styx females, and then the Talamati prides off to the east will also loop across through into their territories. I'm just thinking what that would be in terms of area. Probably I would say at its maximum in the region of 2,000 hectares, possibly even bigger depending on the area that you are in, and that is entirely based around the sort of Sabi Sands region and this specific part of the Sabi Sands. It's not necessarily the case that if you were to have a look in Eastern Africa around Tanzania or Kenya, that territories would be the same size in that sort of area. Also is a little bit dependent on the pride's size as well. So the more they are, the more space they need, the more access to prey that they need on a regular basis. So their home ranges and their territories might be a little bit bigger. But typically, in terms of prides, we don't necessarily think of them as territories per se. They're not actively defended by the prides. They don't scent mark around them in order to keep other prides out or other males out. That is the job of the pride males or the dominant males in the area. And it's their job to defend much larger territories that might overlap several pride home ranges. In terms of male territories, they will have very large territories that overlap a couple of different prides, and typically those will be fairly distinct, although as I said the borders are a little bit amorphous. They can ebb and flow depending on where the individuals are. But generally the prides they might overlap into sort of the southern areas of another coalition or another male coalition that isn't associated with their pride. But typically, because of the risk to that pride and the risk to their, especially if they have young cubs that do not belong to those males. How's that me there, Scott? Good. We've got a very sweet kudu in the morning sun. The light is really quite spectacular this morning. Hello, girl. Look at those beautiful big ears like satellite dishes. She doesn't look as fluffed up and cold as I feel, maybe because she's been standing basking in the sun. Just checking around, making sure she stays alert. Keeping a close eye on us as well. I'm just thinking about my plan for today while we're looking at these beautiful kudu. And I know that many of you would have been involved with the saga concerning Madiba and the fact that he did catch a stray dog yesterday. And I know Brent touched briefly on, and so did James yesterday afternoon, on the threat or the risk of rabies. And the dog has gone off to be tested. And very, very wonderful news for Madiba is that they will be inoculating him regardless. And what they have asked, or the management of Sabi Sands did ask us last night. Oh, I'm just going to be quiet for a moment. Brent said he could hear lions calling. I'm just listening carefully. Okay, the lions are calling in Buffelshoek. I'm not sure which lions, but I'm sure we'll get an update from Tax a bit later today. Anyway, so I just mentioned that the management of Sabi Sands has decided to inoculate him regardless of whether or not that dog does test positive for rabies, which is great news for him, but they have asked us to keep an eye out for him as well. I think once we've checked around Buffelshoek Dam, since the lions we've been tracking have all crossed north into Buffelshoek, we'll head across to the west and see if we can get any updates from there. Beautiful girl. Now, one of the things that was necessary yesterday with Madiba was that he had to be chased away from his kill, or chased out of the tree where he had the dog, so that the Sabi Sands could collect the dog and send it off for testing. And Remay and Laura, and I'm sure many others, are a little bit concerned as to whether or not that will affect the way that he interacts with people. Now, I mentioned yesterday on the Sunset Safari that I wanted to just give him some space and let him relax a bit, and I think he probably did get a bit of a fright, but I don't think it's going to have any long-term effects. It's a once-off event, and he's probably smart enough to know that it's associated with an odd prey species, because I'm sure it's never happened to him before. I don't think in the long term it's going to affect him in any way. Might, for a day or two, watch us a little bit more closely, but I don't think it's going to have too long-term an effect. I don't know what you think, Scott, but I don't think it's going to.
I agree completely.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to stress him out too much in any way. And I know that when I was tracking him a week or two weeks ago, and he was very, very close behind me, I did give him a little bit of a warning stomp just to let him know he was too close, and he immediately learnt his lesson, and it didn't in any way affect him after that. And ultimately, that kind of action is entirely for his benefit, so totally worth chasing him away for that brief moment. She's nibbling away. I'm just having a look to see if there's any green leaves that she's actually got, or if she's just nibbling at the end of growth points there. No, there's some. There are a couple of green leaves. There you can see the oxpeckers getting busy now that it's been warm enough for them to be up and about. There's birds fluttering around her and doing her a great service in terms of tick removal and parasite removal. We've mentioned that we heard lions calling last night, and I suspected that it was the Birmingham boys. And we have had a question as to whether or not females will call, and they will definitely. So yes, definitely females do call, and they advertise their presence in an area. We haven't heard, or I certainly haven't heard, females calling in quite a long time in this area, and that is completely understandable. So Calvin, you were wondering if they do call. Yes, they do, but at the moment it's not that wise of an idea for them to be drawing attention to themselves, just because of all of the chaos that's been caused by the Birmingham boys moving through this area, and then also now the mysterious Salati males who made their first appearance at Djuma on Sunday. And so that is what they will be doing, but I think that's why we haven't heard them calling over the last few weeks. Now, I know there's also a couple of people who were concerned, or not concerned, but had heard lions calling at Arathusa and were wondering if we will be heading across in that direction. Well, since I am going to go and have a look around and see if we can find tracks for young Madiba, I will be right on our western boundary, so I'll definitely be asking for updates from the Arathusa guides. But first, I want to head up to Buffelshoek Dam and just see if there's any action around there. And then never fear, we will be out looking for updates from that side. About listening to lions' calls, just to get back to Calvin's question, is that you can very clearly hear the difference between females calling and males calling, and although the female sound is very, very impressive, it doesn't quite match up to the deep vibrations and the length of the male calls. It is quite an awe-inspiring thing, and we were fortunate enough couple of weeks ago to have all 5 Birmingham boys around us calling, and it really is truly, you can feel the vibrations through your chest, and it goes on just a little bit longer than the females tend to do. And last night the calls that we were hearing, from my perspective, were definitely male. I didn't hear any females calling. And as soon as we see things start to settle, which could take a couple of months still, but once they do start to settle in this area and the prides start to feel a bit more comfortable with the males, then they will probably start to call again with more regularity. As we continue on our mission to Buffelshoek, I know that I've heard James's voice a great deal on the Game Drive channel this morning, updating everyone as to what he's been hearing. So for now, I'm going to cross to him and catch up with you a little bit later.
We're live. Hello everybody, welcome back to Wendy, where we are now in the midst of trying to look at a Brew shrike. Now a Brew shrike is a shrike, unsurprisingly, and what alerted us to its presence was its call. It's also known as the telephone bird, and it goes. Of course, it's not doing that now because you've come live, and so it has got stage fright and become entirely silent. Come on, birds, sing. Huh? It goes. It's actually a bit of a bird party going on here. We've had there's a southern black tit in there as well. Can you see it, Brian? To the right-hand side, or flying away, of course. We got another one. And we had a scimitar as well. Right, so we had a question, quite interesting one, about what sort of equipment we need to bring on drive. From a new viewer, so I'll show you what I bring on drive. I bring a camera. I take one picture every week. We bring a couple of books on mammals and birds. Sunscreen, most important for a pale Caucasian skin in the African sun. A bottle full of Epsom salts and water. It's normally salt, but Brian bought me some Epsom salts because he said that would be good for my voice. This now will probably remain undrunk because, well, you don't drink it, you gargle it, but it tastes utterly appalling, so I'm going to go back to regular salt. Thank you for that, Brian.
Okay, good.
Then a small tripod for my little camera. This was donated by VM. It's not a high quality item. In fact, I would say it's probably an extremely poor quality item. Some emergency earphones and a pair of powerful binoculars, last used by Napoleon Bonaparte just prior to his defeat at Waterloo. That is what we bring on game drive. What else? Oh, a hat, sun hat, of course, because now the sun is becoming quite warm. Yes, so those are the. I've also got something else in here. I have a knife. It's very important to have a knife if you're a ranger, mainly because you need to look manly with a big knife on you. I've never ever used this knife for anything other than whittling down pieces of beef jerky / biltong. And Christopher, the question was from you as to what we have to bring on drive with us. A lot of the other guys also have Leathermen, which is very practical. I've had a few Leathermen in my time. It's a multi-tool, but I've lost all of them, so I shall be purchasing one sometime soon. Then, of course, we have a tin enamel mug. Not sure what that's for. We have the spotlight. We have a wheel spanner. What else we got, Brian? And we got and of course our main defence, a matchet or panga. So Christopher, those are the things we bring on drive with us. And of course Brian has a huge amount of equipment behind him, and that's because the batteries and first aid kits and fire extinguishers, earphones, a box full of tape and tying things and lens cloths, blankie, various pieces of technological equipment, and of course the camera through which you are viewing me live here in the Greater Kruger National Park. Thank you for that question, Christopher, and welcome to it. Very nice to have you along. And a question from Ian, who I believe is also a new viewer. Somewhere in South Africa is Ian sitting, and Ian would like to know where my snack box is. Ian, I'm a very abstemious eater on game drive, so I'm not eating anything today, but I will certainly be eating something in the way of bird seed when I return from drive, and that will be followed with an enormous cup of black coffee. Just up ahead there on the tree we have a bird that you have been watching over the last little while with Jamie, and that is a marabou stork sitting warming himself on this magnificent morning, and you can see just above him, stunning sound of the African fish eagle, quintessential sound of Africa. Some might say cliched, but certainly a beautiful sound. Just above that marabou stalk you can see wispy clouds, and I wonder if we aren't going to be hit with another front fairly soon. What a lovely picture of that deep blue sky and Africa's possibly ugliest bird. What do you think, Brian? He's not exactly up there with the Martial Eagle on the looks front, is he? No. Right. Okay. Let's carry on. We're going to carry on down towards Twin Dams. Just to give you an update, we heard the lions calling. We picked up some tracks of 2 males heading west. I'm pretty sure they were the Salati males. They were very fresh. Then we heard them calling. We drove at a great speed. Brian held on for dear life. And unfortunately, they then called again to the north of our boundary, which is, well, irritating to say the least, but they are now heading north. Now I think these are the 2 Salati males who John asked about this morning, and I think that they are filling what is a power vacuum essentially, because the Birminghams have been chasing the Matimbas down to the south. Neither of them are around this area or haven't been around calling here, so I think those are the 2 Salatis trying to fill up the power vacuum here. It's all very interesting. I just wish that they would get on with their disputes a bit closer to home. An interesting question from Edward on Twitter relating to the lions about whether or not anyone has done any research on the potency of urine versus the dominance of a male lion. Edward, I don't know if anybody has done that, but I mean, your question raises a few interesting other questions. Firstly, how does one measure potency of urine? Remember, we don't know what a lion can smell versus what we can smell. So maybe one smells stronger than the other. That could well have to do with a state of, how dehydrated is the lion? Has it been drinking? Has it not been drinking? What has it been eating? That will affect the smell. But of course also in the urine comes a lot in the way of hormones and pheromones. And that's what gives the display to potential rivals and females if they happen to be in the area too. So your question about whether it is more the dominance of a lion is indicated in the potency of the smell is possibly true, or possibly it's possible, because a lion that has an enormous amount of testosterone in its body tends to be larger and tends to be more dominant, and because of that, because of the heightened testosterone, you would expect their urine to probably smell a little bit different. So Edward, very good question, and I think that I don't know for sure whether that is the case, but I suspect that if a big dominant lion, which by default will have more testosterone than others, does urinate and scent mark, I suspect it would smell different from one that didn't have quite as much testosterone in its body. Good question, thanks Edward. That bird, you see that, Brian? It's carrying nesting material. There's a big bird, everybody, but I don't think we're going to be able to show it to you. Whoa. We're going to go down the road over which it seems to be flying. A big raptor carrying some kind of nesting material. I can actually see the nest, I think. Might be a different one. We'll go down that road. Siberia, Zumi, you want to know about controlled fires. Controlled burning, of course, is a hot topic, especially with people who are not very familiar with the area and people who come from areas where you get those terrifying forest fires that cause enormous damage to homes and properties and indeed to people. Now, we do have fires that come through the area. We're out of the danger zone now. We've had our first 20 millimeters of rain, first of all, so that's not, probably won't get any runaway fires this year. That said, we do get them sometimes after years of very good rains. And after years of very good rains, when the grass is high, in the dry season, sort of August into September, we can often get fires that come through. But because they are grass fires, while they can be fairly terrifying, they're not exactly, they're not quite like the big forest fires that you get up in the northern hemisphere, and indeed we sometimes get them here in Cape Town and around in the escarpment here when the fires get into the trees. Then those are terrifying fires, but out here not normally too terrifying. Question from Lily B as to what we are going to sample today, Brian and I, by way of new shoots that might look tasty to us or possibly tasty to herbivores. Lily, I haven't decided, but if I find something that looks like it might be good to eat, I shall be sure to test it out on Brian, and if he doesn't drop dead, I will have some myself. Sound fair, Brian?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Thank you. So that raptor that we saw came scooting down here. I suspect it's the nest somewhere in one of these big trees. Looks like it might be a Wahlberg's eagle from the size. I'm just going to check in on the Game Drive channel, everybody. I've turned it down so I can't hear. Oh, there it is. It was there. It's in the Ballinati Street. Can you see it there? It's the Djuma Gene. I'm just going to quickly speak on the radio, everybody. If you... Aubrey, come in, Aubrey. Orbs, I'm not copying you properly there. Tracks came out onto the fire break at the junction with a 2-track that goes to Gallagher Shortcut. They then went east along there and then onto the Buffelshoek cut line, carried on east and headed north. I'd stopped following them once we heard them calling to the north there, and I just went straight to the dam, and they called further to the north of that. Confirm you've got other tracks coming south? Yeah, I'm not copying them very well at all. But those lions might be moving up and down, so maybe they will come back towards us. Good. So that bird that we saw there is called a Djuma Gene or African Harrier Hawk. Very interesting raptor in that it doesn't sort of swoop down in traditional raptorous fashion. It flies into trees and then tries to pull out nesting birds. It's got what we call a double jointed intertarsus, which means that basically its knee joint bends both ways. So it can reach into tree holes and pull out chicks. Now I think that's its nest there, Brian. You see there in the top of this tree. I think we did probably chase him out. There he is. He's sitting in the tree lurking, just north of us, at least south of us there. You see him? So there's the nest, and I have spotted the bird who's watching us with suspicion from a knobthorn just in front of us. Oh, and he's got his breeding face. So definitely the bird that is using this nest. Can you see it there, Brian? So there is the Djuma or African harrier hawk, and it's got a red face. You can see it's normally yellow, but today and for the next little while the face will be red, because that's the breed. Oh, it's not, well, it's pinkish. That is the breeding color. I wonder if it's got a kill, you know that?
That's what it was carrying.
Yeah, not nesting material then. Maybe it's pulled something out of this nest. It is devouring something. Some hapless bird, chick or reptile has met its end at the talons of the African harrier hawk. Let's just try and sneak a little bit closer. That's really quite nice to see. Don't fly away, little bird. Looking a little bit nervous, like it might fly. Oh. There it goes. It did pick it up and carry it. Anyway, fascinating sighting that. Did you see where it landed, right? Oh, there it is. On the next knob form. There we go, that might be quite a nice picture of it. Beautiful. Look at that.
I can't see it.
You can't see it? Oh, it's in the middle of this tree here. Sorry about that, Brian. Isn't that lovely? So pinkish face there, normally bright yellow, and less there in the breeding plumage, and now obviously in the breeding plumage, what with it being the springtime. Now apparently this African harrier hawk was seen last year nesting in the same area, so not unusual. They're not migratory, but they will move away from the nests during the non-breeding season. I'm afraid I can't see what it's killed. Fascinating. Alright, Brian, let us continue. We're heading down towards Twin Dams now. See what other tracks we can pick up, and perhaps have a look and see if that hippopotamus is still stuck. I am keeping an ear on the radio, just in case those lions don't come south. No, they're all still on Buffalo's hook, I'm afraid.
Well, Scott and myself did have a wonderful pair of African hawk eagles to show you, and a split second ago they flew away, leaving us with a wonderful pair of fork-tailed drongos. So not quite where we were intending to go with that, but you never know what's going to happen out here. Oh, and the drongos have decided to leave us as well. And it is a wonderful time of year where we get to see these nesting raptors. I know that you've been with the harrier hawk. Now, fortunately, I have a backup plan to show you very briefly before we head back across to James. Since the birds decided not to stick around, I'm just going to shift forward ever so slightly. show you the flowering baboon's tail that's off to my left. Let's see if we can get a good place to see it. So from one sign of spring to another, I've got a slightly different thing to look at. I was going with the nesting raptors look, but for now we'll look at some very pretty purple flowers growing out of the baboon's tail plant. Very, very pretty. Now, our African hawk eagles have disappeared off into the distance. They're feeling a little bit camera shy this morning, and I still have to get across to Arethusa, and I think we'll head back across to James for now and catch up with you a little bit later, hopefully with something that is a little bit less camera shy. Luckily the flowers can't run away from us. Been known to nest on Central Road. I haven't seen them around the nest recently, but I'm sure that they are in the area. And the nice thing about this time of year is that all of the big raptors will have, or most of the big raptors will have laid eggs by now. The vultures may even have chicks. Okay, it seems that the gremlins that were attacking Wendy have been fought off, and James is back up and running, so we're going to head across to him and catch up with you a little bit later.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Wendy, where we are approaching Twin Dams. I suspect that hippo was stuck, but let's have a look and see. Here we are arriving. Oh, news on the northern front is that they have found the lions that were calling. It was in fact the 5 Birmingham males, all 5 of them now sitting on the hills north of where we heard them calling. No hippopotamus here, so fear not, the hippo was not stuck, or if it was, it has got out. Now, half of me is a little bit sad about that, because it means that we now have nothing to look at here at Twin Dams, but that's okay. We'll see what other birds and delights there are. We'll stop on the dam wall in the sun and see what wonders are available to us here. So that's where the hippo was, everybody. It's not there anymore. We do have some squirrels alarm calling. Well, they were. They seem to have stopped now. Lots of bird song around at the moment, so we'll just have a quick listen. And I'll tell you what I can hear. Some blue waxbills, some brown-headed parrots, lots of ring-necked doves, black-crowned chagras, orange-breasted bushshrikes, grey-headed bushshrikes, crested barbets, scimitar-billed wood hoopoes, brown-headed kingfisher. Pity for you, pity for you. Gee, there's a lot. Oh, it's beautiful. It really is. I could sit up here very happily and just enjoy the sounds and the feeling of this warming sun on my face. Now, there's nothing quite like a morning like this for sound and general spirit food, if you like. Okay, so our hippo friend has moved off. Our plan now then is going to be to head onto the southern boundary and head off to the eastern boundary, which isn't too far from here, and then we'll head up towards Biffle's Hook waterhole and see what we can find there. Jamie and I were extremely hopeful when we started off about lions this morning, especially after we heard them so often last night, but they do seem to have eluded us once again. Thank you, Deborah in Canada, for your comment about the beautiful day that it is in South Africa. It is indeed a quite magnificent morning. It's one of these inspirational mornings where you are infinitely grateful for the fact that you are not sitting at a desk in a 2x4 cubicle staring at a computer doing something that you'd rather not be doing. Now please watch how we may go slightly black screen for a few seconds as we go through this dip, but we'll come back then. Thank you, John, for your comment about what the hippo left for me. A Cracker Jack prize. I'm not really sure what that means. I'm assuming you mean, however, that he left some markings, some territorial markings in the way of sprayed dung. Thank you very much for that, John. Yes, he did. I'm sure he did it specifically because he knew I was going to come and see him, and he wanted to let me know that he was okay and that his bowels were functioning in a perfectly acceptable manner. Right, you're going to lose me through the dip. I'll see you the other side. Hello again. I don't know if you did lose me, but I suspect you did. Oh, it is just gorgeous, I must say, as the sun starts to warm the air. Now Patty and Georgianne, you're clearly regular viewers. You want to know when I think that the woodland kingfisher is going to make his appearance. Now the woodland kingfisher, for those of you who don't know, is a wonderful bird of the summer, built and flies a little bit like an F-16 fighter, a glorious blue back, beautiful red beak with black underneath it, and it has a very distinctive call. And it goes something like this. It goes chip, and the first time you hear it, I think they'll probably come in early October, Georgianne and Patty. Oh, there's some nyalas. Some young nyalas. We'll just have a look at these young nyalas. And the first time you hear it, it's such a wonderful sound. The first woodland kingfisher of the summer. But if you live in a Mopani area, like I used to up at Ngala, not too far from here, because there are so many holes in Mopani trees, the population of woodland kingfishers was very thick, and that sound of the woodland kingfisher and his very vociferous attempts to attract a mate becomes slightly irritating, especially when it goes on all night. But it is a lovely sound to hear in an area like this where there aren't quite so many mapani trees, well, there are none, and we do get a great thrill from hearing the newly arrived woodland kingfisher and the distinctive call. Those are some nyala, a nyala cow, and or ewe, and a couple of very young bulls. Righty, beautiful. It's just a pleasure to stop every time this morning and enjoy the atmosphere of what is a spectacular, spectacular day out here. Most privileged, I feel, on a day like today. Right, I'm now going to replace my hat. You see how clever that was, Brian?
That was fantastic.
Yeah, everybody, you missed my bald spot. And well practiced with that. Now, interesting question. We've some very nice elephant tracks coming across here. We'll just follow up once we get to the edge of the boundary, which is right here. Nice question about migratory birds. We've chatted about the woodland kingfishers coming back, and Elsa in Kalk Bay. And for those of you who don't know where that is, Kalk Bay is a magnificent little bay down near Cape Town and the southwest coast of South Africa, which of course is the most beautiful country in the world, so voted by a number of people, and most of them South Africans. And Elsa, you want to know why it is basically that birds migrate. Why do they go away from us, especially the raptors? Elsa, I think you had a specific question about the harrier hawk or the gymnogene and whether they are migratory. They are not migratory. They stay here all year round. But things like the Wahlberg's eagles, they go off into North Africa. They don't breed there. They come back to breed here. Some birds will go away and breed overseas, like the barn swallow. They breed in Europe and they'll come back here for the summertime. Now, the reason for it, Elsa, is simply to exploit food resources that couldn't be exploited otherwise. So the reason that you would want to avoid a northern hemisphere winter is because it snows a lot, and it's cold and there's not much to eat. So if you happen to be an insect eater like a barn swallow, to come back here, or a reptile eater or rodent eater, I mean, Wahlberg eagles eat a lot of reptiles and termites, then it's better for them to be in permanent summer, because there are always going to be reptiles around where there aren't going to be in winter. And that's why, well, I mean, in Africa, a lot of birds do stick around for the winter time because they've adapted to eating different things. But a lot of birds will go away and stay in the summertime in the northern hemisphere because there's just more to eat. More insects, more in the way of reptiles, more rodents running around. Remember, there's a breeding season in the summertime, so same as the impala breed here. We're just looking at some impala in front of us now. The impala breed here in November time. They will drop their lambs, and so it is in the northern hemisphere, where you will have rodents that will produce their youngsters at the height of the sort of summer and spring. And so if you happen to be a bird that can migrate and move to different areas, that's why they go there. There we have two brown-headed parrots, and they've got a nest here. This is wonderful. Two little brown-headed parrots. And there's a nest there. Look, look, look. It's fantastic. Straight into the hole. Isn't that wonderful? Oh, this is really spectacular, people. This is the ultimate sign of spring. And to find two beautiful little parrots like this. It's our only parrot species here. Making their metallic call. We'll just pop up slowly towards the hole there and see if we can't get a look inside. Well, I mean, we're not going to see much, but maybe the female will stick her head out. She is still in there, she might. I think only one of them flew off. Did they blow fly? Yeah. Blow fly. Okay. Well, so you mean we could sit here for a couple of days and not see anything? Isn't that lovely? So a brown-headed parrot, obviously a tree-nesting, hole-nesting bird, and I've seen them fly out of that hole before, but I've never seen them going into it or sitting around it. That was wonderful. So they'll be setting the nest up, ready to breed and lay their eggs. Lovely herd of waterbuck over there, mixed up with some impalas. We had a question about how those parrots defend their nests. Well, I mean, they've got claws, I suppose, and they've got very sharp beaks. So those beaks will be used to defend the nest against anything that might come into it. It's not easy though, as a hole nesting bird. Once something like a snake knows what's going on there, I think it's quite difficult to defend. And I suspect that's why it's on the underside of that tree. It's probably a little more difficult for a snake to get into than it might be otherwise. But they will definitely, like most birds, harass any predator that comes near there. They'll dive bomb it and peck at it and try and discourage any kind of activity towards the nest. And the nest, of course, would be mostly attacked by snakes. It might be certainly a gymnogene, like that African harrier hawk we saw, would go and be able to stick its double-jointed intertarsus into that nest and pick out any chicks there were. And then also maybe a genet or a smaller, some of the mongoose will climb trees, not the dwarf mongoose, but some of the others might go up a tree and try and pull some chicks out of the nest there. So not easy to raise chicks out here. Beautifully golden shining waterbuck here on this perfect spring morning here. I think it's also quite nice that the temperature's maintained quite a sort of chilliness about it. Otherwise it can be very hot by this time of the year already. Come on, Wendy, don't give up on me now. Thank you, Lisa in Arizona, for your comment. Birds nesting in a cactus near where you live. I'm not sure that you get indigenous American lovebirds. That's very interesting. Are they from Africa, perhaps? Let us head down here, Brian, and see if there's elephant tracks that pop out somewhere close by. I don't want to go down there, otherwise we're going to get stuck going down there. So the elephant tracks, which looked pretty fresh, were coming in this direction. So we'll just wind our way up towards Buffelshoek Dam and see if we can't pick them up. Oh, crispy day. Oh, that's quite interesting, Brian. You see how the mountains seem to be covered a little bit in haze and a bit of cloud, and I wonder if there isn't another front blowing its way in. This does not bug me too much. I'm not too worried about that, given the inevitable heat that I know is going to descend on the low veld as we move into the summer. Low veld, by the way, for those of you who perhaps new viewers, basically means low land, and it describes the area of South Africa in the northeastern section to the east of the Drakensberg Mountains, which you've just seen. And we lie at about between 250 and 400 or 500 meters above sea level, and that is roughly 700 to 1800 feet or so. And the highest point in this area is about 800 meters above sea level, so about 2,600 feet above sea level, and that's a little mountain in the Kruger National Park, but otherwise it's pretty low down here. That's why we call it the low veld, and that's why it's so volcanically hot here.